information that you need to have. What I kind of explain to people is, we rolling? Okay, good. So I'm going to start with what I learned in life, and that is, when I went to school originally, Sandy, I did not take notes because I thought I remembered it all. And then I'd take the test, and boy, I didn't want to go home and show my parents that test. My dad said, let me give you a little thought, son. You see this pencil? Yes? Use it. So I'm going to encourage people to take notes tonight. Hold your questions. You're going to have some questions, okay? We're going to be happy to answer some questions after. But write down your question because it's going to spur your thought at that point. Okay? Is everybody good with that? So it's a two-part class. You're going to get the general information. Tonight's instructor is none other than my partner, Cutler. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 5 things that people do that are successful. So this is the first thing you can practice writing down. Here's the 5 things. People that are successful are willing to do things that people that are not successful are willing to do. Here's the 5 things. Ready? Number 1, people who are successful get educated. They come to things like this and they get the information. The second thing they do is they take the good information, the things that work, and they put it into action. Number 3, if you're trying to do something in terms of either reducing your tax, getting streams of income that are more tax efficient, making sure your legal documents protect you, you've got to get passionate about it. That's the 3rd thing. The 4th thing that people do that are successful, 4th thing, is they have courage. And everybody always asks me, give me an example of courage. Raise your hand if you're married or have been married. That takes courage, right? That's an example. The last thing they do, 5th thing, is they got to get feedback that their plan's working. That's what successful people do. Tonight, I want to introduce you to Evan Cutler, 29 years in this business. Handpicked, we worked together for many years before he joined the practice and moved his family here. Family man, good man, has a couple of adopted children. I couldn't think of a nicer man to work with. I trust him like a brother. He called me his work wife for a long time. So here we are, Evan Cutler. I'm gonna let you take it away, and then at the end, remember the 5 things, okay? It'll be a little test. Evan Cutler.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Congratulations for being here. And we got a nice event. Estate planning means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Anybody know much about mountain climbing at all? Well, that's Mount Everest. Estate planning is often compared to Mount Everest. You see it from a long way away, you want it, you gotta get up to that top. Well, not only do you have to get up to that top, what else do you have to do? We're gonna look at that. This is John says, take good notes, I promise. We'll emphasize things that are good notes for you. When you're climbing that mountain, you know you gotta get to the top. What else do you have to do with that mountain? You gotta get back down, don't you? Hopefully, right? There's 2 phases of an estate plan. One is going up the mountain. Nice, congratulations, you probably have done that. You grind it out and you retired in Brunswick County. Congratulations, give yourself credit. And now we gotta get down the mountain. And that's maybe partly why you're here tonight. It's not one-dimensional anymore. The plan to get up the mountain and grow a nest egg is one-dimensional. Grow your money, right? Now we're at the top of the mountain. We're looking down, going, whoa, I'm not sure anyone actually taught me how to climb down the mountain. Along those lines, what are these 3 things that are on your mind going down this mountain from your estate planning standpoint? What are they?
Making sure my money will last as long as I do, but I'm not in charge of that.
Well, hold on, just slow down. That's important. You did bring up 2 important things. You said money has to last as long as I last.
Yeah.
And I'm not in charge of it. Which brings an important word, which is control. Remember this word. Control, remember that word. what else is important in your estate plans right now for you?
Then I look at my children and best.
You want to keep it nice and organized and tidy and organized. Organized. All right? Is there anything else? This is your meeting. This is your class. We have a fancy agenda, but I want to make sure we focus on what you really want meat and potatoes to talk about. So what's on your mind? The other two things,
I want to make sure that when I'm leaving my heirs, is it taxed to them, and one then is opposed to these things.
tax is perhaps on your mind. If you have money, tax probably should be on your mind. If you have family, you want tax to be on your mind. Is there another? Many of you said it on the way in.
The will or trust.
Wills and trusts, the legal. Okay, that's the focus for tonight. We live in a complex world. This is a complex topic. We're going to simplify it. And we're going to simplify it to a format where it's on one piece of paper for your estate plan, and you can be organized, you can get in more control, which is what I heard you say. You want to get in more control of your tax, your legal, your income, and your finances, right? Because you want to worry less and enjoy more than likely. That's everyone's estate plan. All right, that's what we'll focus on. That's what you're asking us to focus on. That's what the whole class is focused on. And as I say, it is a robust course. And I'll refer to some of these notes, so I don't want to overlook a singular thing. This is some of the most important information you may ever get, potentially. John mentioned me, and I appreciate that. This is not a meeting about me, as I said, this meeting is about you. But why am I qualified to stand up here and teach about estate planning? Briefly about my story, because it's firsthand and real, is that my dad died of Parkinson's in 17. Then my mom was a caregiver, before he died, my mom was a caregiver for 14 years. And then she died 3 weeks ago of Lewy body dementia. John, and I was her caregiver. And John mentioned I have an adopted child, I have 2 biological children, and we all have these things we have to navigate through in our estate plan. And I'm doing it firsthand, which is the good news for you. Okay? Because I've gotten pretty good at it over the years, fortunately or unfortunately. And everyone's estate plan is a little different, but we go through similar things. You say you want to make sure you don't run out. What else is super important to you folks about an estate plan? What are we protecting against? Really?
Super important health.
Your health care. Do you mean long-term care? Is that a concern? Big? Yes? No? What are the 2 things, or a couple of the biggest things that could paralyze a plan? What are they?
Terminal illnesses.
Health care. That's a big one. Let's just not put our heads in the sand. The other thing that can paralyze a plan is procrastination. So we'll refer to the ostrich a little bit tonight. We want people, if you get educated, like John said, take the action. And you'll feel so good about it. Get more control of the legal, get more control of the tax, and get more control of the financial. Put a pretty bow on top of it, and you can have a great retirement. All right, that's why I'm qualified to talk about these things. We live through them, our clients are living through them. We have to talk disclosures for a quick moment. Why else am I qualified, okay? The word fiduciary comes up a lot. That means we can give advice. On what? Well, we have people asking us about the 3 things we just said: tax, legal, and financial. We're not attorneys or CPAs, but we work with some of the best in this community. Some of these people call John in our office, John and me in the office, some of the attorneys and CPAs here in town are calling us. So we're going to help you put your estate plan on a piece of paper. What are we going to get into in the detail right now? The first thing is what you asked first on walking in the door: wills and trusts. Is it okay to start there? Long-term care. And transfer your assets, right? You want to have some assets left at the end, yes?
Not much.
Wills and trusts. Raise your hand if you have a will. Raise your hand if you have a trust. Not everybody has a will. One person has a trust. Someone that has a will. Why do you have a will?
I want my wishes to be known.
Your wishes. You want your wishes to be known. Good answer.
Not our fault. It was those keys.
No, not at all. We were told it starts at 6:30 and it's misnamed.
Welcome. We're glad you're here for some education. Wills are the topic right now. Do you guys have a will? How about a trust? Okay. Let's talk about the difference. Who might need what? I don't know any of you from Adam, right? Right? I don't know any of you personally, right? One general piece of advice is have a will. You can afford one. Chances are. Anybody in here do their own dental work? Raise your hand. What? Okay. Leave some of these things to the pros when it comes to an estate plan. Okay? It's important. We're going to go through the details here on all the important topics between these two things. The will and the trust is the foundation of an estate plan. The first thing that has to happen, you must have an estate, right? You have to build a nest egg. You've gone up that mountain, most of you, and you already have built a nest egg. And now you may want a will or a trust, or perhaps both. You made a good response and you said, my wishes. Here's a big difference in a will and a trust. A will directs your wishes. A trust ensures your wishes are carried out. It's a step up. It's a will on steroids, maybe you can say. And it's a basic planning tool. Okay, if you're successful enough to have a family and dress nice and have a house and come to this class today, you should probably have a will, and an attorney should probably sign off on it. And it shouldn't cost you more than maybe $1,000 for a will and the basics. Keep it simple. But have a good attorney and make sure the attorney's name is on this piece of paper. Okay? Take some good notes. This is what your estate plan can come down to, is one piece of paper, nice and organized. A will does nothing until you die. A trust goes into effect as soon as it's funded. So what does that mean to someone like us? It means you can control your assets however much or little you desire to control them. If you want to get very specific, and let's see, why else might you have a trust? Anybody have more than one property? Anybody have maybe a couple of boats or extended families, perhaps? Okay, special needs family member, perhaps. Hi. Talking about why you may or may not want a will, need a will, have a trust, need a trust. Privacy is one of the biggest things people say. How do you keep your stuff private? Is that concerning anyone in this room? Maybe, maybe not. Well, let me give you some really valuable advice, free advice. I'm going to try to give you as much free advice tonight as I possibly can in 1 hour. And I'll keep to that hour. The advice is possibly more important than your will and your trust is your beneficiaries on your financial accounts. Okay? I tell you that with certainty. Today I found out my dad, who passed away at 17, was still a beneficiary on my own mom's stuff because the insurance company never fixed it. Wow. Okay, I'm pretty on top of this stuff. But these are the things that we see happen go through our office, and there's some great stories coming through the office. We want people to be careful and know about the scams, know about all this stuff. That's why we're going through the detail on these slides. Will and a trust. You say there's a lot of questions on these. What question does someone have on this topic?
If you have a special needs child, does a will help protect that person later on, or is a trust a better way?
The question, it has to do with special needs planning, and without knowing your particulars, I would say write that down. We can talk privately about any of these topics for your own family, right? But in general, if there's a special needs situation, you're gonna want specific instructions on what happens after you're gone, I would assume, and that would take place in a trust.
Okay, in a trust, thank you.
There's different types of trusts, right? There are different types of trusts. Any other burning questions from you on that topic? You were walking in here with that on your mind. I want to make sure we cover it for you.
Can you give me an example of how a will would have less ability to control my assets when I die? The last point says there's limited ability. Can you give me a scenario?
I just did. One of the scenarios might be you have a special needs child, and you have some specific things you want to happen. You want that child to get 20 grand a year for the next 13 years, and then starting in year 15, you want them to have 50 grand a year.
You can't put that in a will. I'm asking.
No, that's a legitimate question. A will has limited capabilities. I don't know your situation, so we need to really just dive into it. A will is sufficient for most people. I don't own a trust this moment. I will be owning a trust soon. Who owns a trust? Let's see again. Just John. Why do you own a trust, John?
Because I want to control my assets when we're ready. I'm very clear about it. I want specific things that are ensured happen when I leave this earth. And part of that is my homes. I have 2 children and I have grandchildren. I do not want a gold-digging daughter-in-law or a gold-digging son-in-law to take half my assets out of my debt. So I have specific controls that I put in my trust. That's my answer.
Protection. Yes, please come in. Thank you for being here. You look lovely tonight. And we're getting real serious on wills and trusts, why they're important, why you should associate with professionals here in the community on these topics. Right? Local professionals. Is your will valid? Who moved here from another state? Raise your hand. Who moved here from another state? Raise your hand. Almost the whole room. Is your will valid?
Yes.
How do you know?
Because we did it in North Carolina.
Okay. Who moved here from another state and hasn't done anything with their will? Raise your hand. Is it valid in this state?
I'm told it is.
By whom?
In my own investigation.
Okay. Well, that's the question, right? We don't know unless we get proper guidance. And if you don't have good attorneys or CPAs or financial people, you want to come with questions to us. Bring us any question anytime on any of this stuff afterward. So protection, people want to protect their assets. We hear this all the time. I just want to understand what people are running from. What are you trying to protect your assets from? And so far we've talked about tax and your health care. You want to protect your assets from health care, which we'll talk in some detail.
Which is easier though to manage? Because again, you go through different phases in life and things may change, and every time they change, you gotta go and update the will. Is the trust easier to accommodate as changes within your life change that would impact it?
Excellent question. So much of estate planning is being super organized and being educated. And it depends, is part of the answer. A trust, a will need to be reviewed, just like your financial documents need to be reviewed, don't they? How often should you review your financial documents with a professional?
Every year is what I do.
Maybe every year?
Is that it?
How often should you review your will and your legal docs? 2, 3, 4 years, or if you move, or if you get a new grandbaby. There's so many variables. All that we try to get across to people is work with people you can trust. And like John and I teach, it's less about what, it's more about who. Who do you know in the community that can step you through, you know, an estate plan? Because you want to leave more to a grandkid, or you want to leave more to a charity, or you want the last check you write to bounce at the end. That's how you want to do the estate plan, right? Make that last check bounce and that's it. You want some left over at the end, is the question. Who wants some left over at the end? Money, at the end. Who wants some left over? Where's it gonna go? Kids, grands, exactly. So if you can have some left over at the end, would you want it more tax efficient or less tax efficient?
More taxes efficient.
More. So that's how you rope these things together. You get control. Couple things that we're going to refer to a lot when it comes to estate planning. This is what people tell us they want. More control, that word keeps coming up. Control of what? Tax, legal, financial. I want control. Less tax, and that equates to a larger estate. And once it's tidy, you can rest easy. So a will can't get super specific. It's not a will, a beneficiary supersedes a will. So I just want you to really understand this. Your financial account, does anyone in here have a financial account? Raise your hand. Of some sort. Bank account, IRA. You have beneficiary designations on there. Please make sure they're right. Those also avoid probate. Most financial accounts can avoid probate. Couple types of trusts. A little more specifics now on trusts, okay? A lot of questions are going to come up. Please take good notes. Bring some questions to us. This is where most of the questions come. Revocable versus irrevocable. It really comes down to, again, the word control. A revocable trust is like a more secure will. And an irrevocable trust is another level above that entirely. The big thing with an irrevocable is you can't change it. You lose control. You give the asset into the trust and you lose control. That's the big thing. A lot of questions come up on this, and I would like you to know what I hear people asking me these questions about, and the answer has to do usually with long-term care. They say they want a trust in case they need long-term care. Does anyone think that way? Why do you think that way, may I ask?
Well, because the nursing home can take everything they can.
And what does putting it in a trust do?
Well, I didn't know that.
Well, there's pros and cons to these things, and the reason people don't know the answer is because people don't know these answers, that's why. The complexity of some of this is there. It doesn't have to be, though. You've grown assets. It's time to use and spend them, which a lot of people need to be taught how to do that. And then it's time to leave them. And you can leave them efficiently with some simple, proper planning. So that's the big deal. Irrevocable trusts get into more sophisticated planning, which may or may not apply to you. Are we okay? Can I go to another topic? Is there a burning question that we want to ask the group here on wills and trusts and the legal aspects of your estate?
Would the same lawyer who made your will, can he make a trust if he's still alive?
The question is, can the same attorney who wrote your will write your trust if he's still alive? You're not sure if your attorney's alive.
I don't know if he's practicing.
25 years passed.
Okay, it's time for an update.
Yeah.
help you find a good local attorney that you can trust, And even the good ones you can trust are busy. So if you want to see an attorney soon, take the action.
So I shouldn't have as a beneficiary my estate from your previous conversation.
Should you have your beneficiary as your estate?
Estate,
It
yes.
does depend, more than likely, that might not be the best route. I don't know your situation. Do you have family? Who are your beneficiaries? We sit with people and we give advice on just this topic to change your whole estate plan. If you get this right.
Question.
And it's simple, if you know would work.
On an irrevocable trust, if you no longer own the asset, if you require the asset for living expenses, you still are able to spend the money personally, or the money is no longer yours, it's in this trust.
I'll be brief and write it down, please, because let me answer it as best I can, because I am familiar with it. The reason people feel these irrevocable trusts are important, and many of the people that feel that are attorneys, by the way, is because they're trying to put assets in a trust to qualify for Medicaid for long-term care purposes. Let me say that out loud. Is there any other reason?
Okay, so I'll give one example.
Thank you.
All my many years that I've been in this, just to answer the general question, I've seen one irrevocable trust. Why?
Here's the part, go ahead.
You lose control.
You lose control, and this is the point that I want to emphasize when it comes to this. When we talk about Medicaid, if you have no money, you're right, Medicaid will pay your long-term care, you're right. Does anyone in here know what a Medicaid facility looks like? Smells like? Have you been in them?
Yes.
Unfortunately, it is that stigma. If you want to go to New Haven in Little River, or a place in Wilmington for $7,000 a month, like my parents both did, you're not going to rely on Medicaid if you want to really have a good plan. But everybody's different. We need to understand what you're looking to accomplish is the big thing. The number one reason people tell me they have a trust is because their friend does. It's the number one reason, and they're keeping up with the Joneses. I'm not against trusts. Just know what you're dabbling in, right? It's important. Can we move forward? Awesome.
Yeah, again, Evan, I just encourage people to take notes.
Take notes.
Questions that are pertinent to you, so when you sit down with either Evan or myself, we can answer those specific questions privately to you.
Before we leave this, a couple of free tidbits of information. Let's look at your beneficiaries. I watched John help a new widow. He spent 40 hours with a new widow because she didn't have this on one piece of paper. She had it everywhere. She didn't even know what she had, literally. And just imagine all that, okay? We see that too often. So get the beneficiaries, call your bank, make sure you have a beneficiary even at the bank, or a joint account. Please, 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 joint account at your bank. It's a good free piece of advice. You can implement that tomorrow. We'll talk more about long-term care. Don't worry, sticking to the class here. Another thing you can do, learn how to spend more. Okay? You can spend your money, it's okay. Sometimes people are hesitant to spend it. It's another way you start giving it away, perhaps. We gotta do it tax efficiently, though. If we're gonna do any of these things, we gotta do it tax efficiently. Back to the fundamentals of this class. Okay? There's only 3, and we're gonna give you the good meat and potatoes. We talked about legal, now we're really gonna talk about retirement and long-term care aspect. We talked about the legal, right? Have a will, have your basic documents. It shouldn't cost the family more than maybe $1,000 if it's simple. maybe it's $2,000, okay? Have it in place, you'll feel great. Let's leave that, let's talk about retirement planning, long-term care planning. And obviously, before you can use a will or a trust, you have to grow a nest egg. And many of you, most of you, have a nest egg. All different size nest eggs, but you have a nest egg, and you want to protect it. Right? That's why you're here. And you want to leave it. That's why we're here. And we want to rest easy and enjoy more with that nest egg. These are the tools to help you do that. These are them. There's no magic pills. These are the good tools. We already talked a good bit about this, right? You don't want to see your money dissipate. What's the number one thing that could make your money dissipate? The number one or two thing that could make your money dissipate?
My husband's shopping on Amazon every day.
Amazon? All right, I'll give you 3.
Trips.
Trips should be up in the top 3, you're right. What's the other 2? Healthcare. And that 3-letter nasty word. This is the things that are the biggest expenses in retirement. We'd rather see our clients spend more on trips and Amazon and less on tax. That's part of a plan that you can implement. A written plan. We'll give you a couple of tax tidbits that you could potentially execute on. Who here in this room thinks tax rates probably going to stay about the same? Raise your hand. Who thinks tax rates are probably going to go lower? Only one answer left. Who in the room thinks tax rates are probably going to go up? Raise your hand. Whole room.
Look at that, everybody put their hand up at it.
So, what is written down in your plan, if you think tax rates are going to go up, the whole room thinks that. What's in your plan to address that? Anybody have something? It might be a good time to let's sit down and make sure you have a tax plan too. Legal plan, a tax plan. What would a tax plan involve? Right? Well, we want more to go to them kids or grands. Anybody here have kids? Raise your hand. How about grands? Who do you like better? Grands. Let's talk about tax. It's important, very, and it's ever changing. You ever go to Sunset Beach or Wrightsville Beach or Ocean Isle Beach and pick up some sand and try to hold it? It falls right through. It's like tax is like holding sand in your hand. But you can take some control of the tax code for your family. All of you can. You don't have to be wealthy to be able to have some good tax advantages. Here's an example. If you make $80,000, what tax bracket are you currently in?
12%.
How do you know that?
Because it says so right.
Good. Okay, that's today. 2023, if you make $80,000, your Social Security, your pension, whatever the case may be, you're in a bracket. That bracket's 12. Fast forward a few years to 2026. There's a reason that date is there. You make 80 grand. What tax bracket are you in? How did that happen?
Because they're running out of money in 2026 is the date.
We're pretty much. There's no new information. We're spending way too much as a country. I think most people are going to keep politics out. Most people can agree we're spending too much, maybe. But tax rates are going to go up because we know they are. It's in the law. It's in the law. 2026, the tax rates revert back to how they were in 17. Pretty simple. And I'll show you why that happened, how it happened, and if you know that, you can do this. You can start to take more control because we do know what's happening. And there's a couple of tax strategies that can help you and your family. I'll give you a couple of examples. Anybody in here own IRAs, 401ks, TSP, maybe a 403B if you're a teacher, nurse, any of those, 457? Raise your hand so I can see. Almost everyone in the room has a retirement account that you built while you were working or are still working. That's what I just saw. And those are called IRAs, 401ks, qualified accounts. And those are wonderful. Excuse me, I get passionate about this. Those are wonderful accounts. We were taught how to do that going up the mountain. When you go to use that money, how is it taxed? When you go to use your IRA that you built while working, how is that money taxed?
When you start taking it out, I don't know.
Everybody in the room has an IRA. We need to know how we're going to be taxed at some point when we go to use it, because when we go to use it, we're going to be taxed, is really what this says. So if you know that, you can have a better plan in place to deal with it. When do you have to take money out of these? Okay, the correct answer, thank you for speaking up, this is why there's confusion, and that's why we do classes in the local community. The new age, it's changed multiple times, okay? It changed from 70.5 to 72, it's currently 73. It's gonna change again as well in 2033.
Can you give the dates for each of those three different, because everybody was right. 70.5 is right, 72 is correct, 73 is correct. And the only one we didn't hear was 75.
Yeah, let's look at that. Most of you, John's right, everybody's right. It used to be 70.5 for the longest time. In 2020, during COVID, it was one of the most sweeping tax changes of all time, maybe. And that was only a couple of years ago. They changed the RMD age from 70.5 to 72. Now,
Unless,
there's stipulations, fine print. There's a lot of fine print in these topics. So you need to know, right? Because you're all gonna be 73 one day, aren't you? We hope so.
If you're already there and you're already getting the distribution, you're not giving it back to me until I'm 75, so.
They're not gonna give you it back, correct, but you're all gonna be 73, we hope, and you all have an IRA, you just told me. So let's make sure there's a tax plan to manage that, to get it to the kids or grandkids, whatever's important to you. More control. You take money out of your IRAs, it can also impact your Social Security, real important. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time. When you take money from your IRAs, it's taxable income. Your Social Security taxation is based on your income. That's complex, but not really. So just be aware. The Secure Act was what changed all this. The Secure Act happened in 2020. The new rejuvenated Secure Act supposedly followed right on its tail 2 years later. Second sweeping tax change. All these companies were on their head, having changed all their systems and processes a second time. So it's really created a lot of questions, the Secure Act did. You also, we encourage you to be aware of the fact that you all own IRAs. You told me that. And probably someone will inherit those one day if you don't use them all up, right? There's new rules on how people can inherit an IRA. It's important, you know that. You all have one. Okay? If it's a spouse, easy. If it's a kid or someone other than a spouse, it's very complex. And not many people, or frankly, even organizations, are keeping up with it. Okay? Again, Secure Act, know about it. We'll give you an article on it. Tons of information on the Secure Act. Be careful where you get your information. Be careful on hyperlinks that you take. Too many scams are after you. Some good came out of that Secure Act. We want you to tell your kids, we want you to tell your grandkids about things like the Roth IRA, which we're going to talk about. Some good came of this. So there's some good value in tonight when you're on the phone with your grand or you're on Facebook with your grandkid. Tell them about the Roth IRAs. Here it is. Anybody own one? Nice.
Good.
Several people own a Roth IRA. Let me show you what happens. Every one of you said you have tax deferred money. When you go to use it, it becomes what? Taxable money. At what tax rate? We don't know what it's going to be down the road at the current tax rate. So you might consider taking some of that money and making it into a Roth. And make it tax-free forever. For who? Who gets that Roth tax-free? You do. What can you spend it on? Anything you
Anything his
want.
wife wants is what he
How does it go to your lovely wife when you go? How does the tax work when you pass away? For her, on a Roth. Anyone know? No tax. John, would you give me a water? Would you please?
It'll be taxable.
It's taxable, I agree. A Roth IRA is a tax-free account you can use and enjoy. Your spouse inherits it tax-free. Your kid inherited it tax-free. And even your grandkid inherited it tax-free. Roth. 4-letter word, huge impact. Thanks, John.
Got it.
So you can take some of your IRA, turn it into a Roth now. Give you a couple examples of some things that can also help you on the tax side. You said you're already taking R&D? I'm shocked, you don't look old enough. Do you need the R&D? What do
I'll
you do with it then if you don't need it?
Reinvest it, try to.
save some.
Perfect, okay, we're taking an R&D even though you don't look old enough. Because who's telling you you have to take the R&D? Government, are you okay with that? Really? Yeah, it does matter, it matters. Yeah, it can matter because you don't have to take an R&D from a Roth. So if you want more control and a larger estate, we need to dismantle these IRAs and turn them into Roths. But my question right here, God bless, you have an R&D, you don't need it. That's congratulations, right? You have arrived. And what you can do with it is called a QCD. Qualified Charitable Distribution straight to a charity, if you're so inclined. And then that piece of money never hits your tax line. Anybody using that? John's using that. How many people in this community do you think you've told that story to, John?
It's a lot. That's all I can say, a lot.
That's a good tax technique. Anybody want to disinherit the IRS? You all said to me in loud, clear, certain terms, I don't want to run out. My dad and I promised my mom she'd never run out. She didn't. That's the good news. We didn't do everything right. There's no perfect plan. We didn't do tax planning in my family. My dad didn't. It wasn't as popular back then. So my mom inherited the widow tax. Anybody know what the widow tax is? When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse is then in a single tax bracket. So my mom, who was fine on income, inherited my dad's IRA, and it drove her income up. And therefore it drove her tax up. And it drove her tax on Social Security up. We're not complaining, we're just learning. We learn from all of these stories and then we teach them. So we can inherit Roth IRA tax-free. What do you like better? Inheriting a taxable or tax-free? Who in this room can have a Roth if they want one? If you have an IRA, you can have a Roth. It's not hard. We can do it. You can do it. We can show you how to do it. This is the federal state tax exemption. There's a good example in our course here about the state tax exemption. And that example is, I I ain't gonna get to 25 million or 12 million, I don't have to worry about it. However, can that change? Can they change the federal estate tax exemption to what?
Whatever they want,
When?
whenever they want.
They can, okay, they can, and they have. The federal estate tax exemption was $1 million not that long ago,
Yes,
right? You remember when?
less than 10 years, I think.
2002,
Oh,
and in 17 it was 5.5. So it's, we don't know what the taxes are gonna be in the future. Do we know what taxes are now? Today? Is there a couple things maybe we can do to capitalize on that and take advantage of it? Are we showing you a couple things, yeah? We don't wanna run out. This is a quick example, and we'll start wrapping it up, make sure you're out on time. We promise to be on time, promise to give you good value, and hopefully we're delivering on all of it, okay? This is an example of some of the things we help people with. We analyze the portfolio, right? The likelihood of running out or not. Pretty simple, right? I hope you've all had one of these done. If you haven't, we can do it. This says this person's portfolio is stress test, and he's got a 90% likelihood of having a great retirement and never running out. Wonderful. So then we put the same information with a long-term care event happening. And it says that. You know, you got a 1 in 3 chance now. It's food for thought. How do I know? Well, I did the math on what we would have spent on care if we didn't have a long-term care plan. It was $400,000 that didn't have to get paid out in care costs because we had a long-term care plan. And there are long-term care strategies out there that may be different than what you're familiar with. They've come a long way. So understand how important this topic can be. I mean, it's a third of this class has us talking about long-term care and the averages. Everybody know what the average cost of care is? What is it? Just ballpark. A lot?
A lot.
Ballpark. You guys know.
$7,000 bucks a month.
Maybe $7,000 a month for average care. What's your name?
Barb.
If Barb needs care, are you gonna allow her to have average care?
Would you like better?
Okay, so it may be more than $7,000 a month if you want good care. And it is $7,000 for a nice assisted living. Nobody here is going to assisted living, I understand that. But they're all full, okay? And we may need help at some point. How are you gonna pay for that help? If you had to spend that kind of dough, just know how you're gonna do it and get a plan for it. It becomes part of the plan, your legal plan, your tax plan, and your income plan for life has a long-term care element. Simple.
On the long-term care, I have a policy that's supposed to take care of that.
Awesome.
Is that good?
That's good. Real good. And if you'd like us to review it,
I'm a retired teacher, and it was offered to us one time, several years ago, to take this. You could $50,000 life insurance policy or long-term care policy. And
good
so
for you.
we took it out.
Took some action.
And now they don't offer it anymore.
You've got
And
to deal with it.
when I retired, they gave me the option to keep it or.
Allow me to give you another good value nugget. You may have an old life insurance policy, a long-term care policy, $2,000 in an old IRA from 10 years ago. Take all that stuff out of the cabinet, dust it off, get it on your piece of paper, and sit with a specialist. If you don't have one, we'll help you. If you want a second opinion, we'll help you. What we do on these topics, it's a lot for people. They get overwhelmed. We hear that, John.
We hear it all the time.
None of this needs or should be overwhelming. It can be pretty simple if you have a written plan And hope is not a plan. Long-term care, okay, there's so much emphasis on it. Give you a quick acronym. Have a plan for ill. Ill stands for income, longevity, and long-term care. If your income plan is bulletproof, if you have it protected and it's for life, and it's for both husband and wife for life, and the long-term care is in there as a wrapper, you're bulletproof, you're good. Medicaid planning, again, back to where we started a little bit. Yes, there are some things you can do to put assets in certain type of trusts. Again, it's complex, and you may not want to be on Medicaid one day. I don't want to be on Medicaid. So, we gotta know what we're doing here. This is important stuff. There's your average cost of care. 15 years from now, it might be, 16 grand a month. We don't wanna scare people. But we do want people to be awake. We don't want any ostriches. What does an ostrich do? The other thing we've seen happen is we had a family who had a long-term care emergency. And they had to take money out of their accounts to pay for the care. The accounts were IRAs, just like you guys have. Right? If you're paying $7 grand a month out of your IRA for a whole year, 7 times 12 is over $90,000 he's taken out of his IRA to pay for care. How is that $90,000 taxed? Pardon? It's taxable for the poor family. So they're struggling because they got the care, they're having to liquidate their IRA, and oh, by the way, it's taxable. How would we resolve that? What would a better plan be? Have some Roth, maybe have a long-term care strategy or plan, have lifetime income, all the things we're talking about today. Repurpose, you don't want to lose money, do you? Who wants to sign up for the lose money plan? We don't want to lose money, and we can. Warren Buffett, anybody heard of him? Anybody? I'll still get you out on time, you're getting nervous. Warren Buffett's #1 rule of planning is don't lose money. You know what his second rule is? See rule #1.
Don't waste.
Don't lose money. Don't waste money. You guys okay with paying tax? You okay with paying your fair share of tax? Fair share. Are you okay with paying your whole neighborhood or all Brunswick County's tax? No, so we gotta get control of it. That's what this is all about. What about this group? We talked about a lot tonight. And when you put this all in a bundle, and you talk about a comprehensive estate plan, it doesn't have to be complex. Everybody needs an estate plan. Okay? If you're a college kid with no money, you probably need a plan anyway, of some sort, a written plan that you can keep in the safe, and it's crystal clear, with water on it. It's crystal clear. And the family knows where it is, the password's right there, but it's comprehensive, and it will involve the 3 things we talked about tonight. Tax, legal, and long-term care. We talked about a lot, as I said, a lot. We didn't even talk about financial planning, really, okay? Do you think now's a good time to rope that in? We talked about the market only a little. Allow me to talk about this market for a moment, because it's pretty important. Anybody affected by the 2008 little downturn?
Yes.
Everyone was, probably in this room. All right? Did you do something, though, when that happened, that you can revert back to know that can't happen again to you?
No, I stuck it out.
Okay. Well, can it happen again to you then?
It can.
Right? If you didn't kind of fix that problem, It might happen again. That's what we're trying to tell people. It's an imperfect storm. The financial experts are calling what's happening right now. For the reasons of there's a lot of factors happening between the war, the inflation, all these things we hear about. There's a lot happening. So more than ever, this estate planning is super important. When we ask people about all these things, how's your estate plan, right? Is there any holes in your estate plan? Are there any things on that mountain that you feel like you might want to address? I say to the group here, how is your plan after all this? How is your plan?
There's some holes.
Those are the looks I'm getting. Those are the looks.
In development.
The plan is in development, okay? I'd like to kind of maybe just kind of end where we started and say to you guys this, okay? A lot of information in a very short amount of time tonight, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. The three elements is don't run out, don't waste it, don't lose it. And the way you do that is you have to know who the experts are to sit with your family and figure out what you want to get done on the tax, legal, and financial side of things. And that's what a comprehensive plan will look like. And we would be honored to help any one of you who would want some help. Do we charge? No. We get together, we sit like we just did right now, we have a conversation. About what? Whatever you want, right? But that's what we do and how we do it. So John's passing out these gold sheets. If you would be so kind, just tell us who you are. You know you came. You can do our tax write-offs and all the fun things. And secondly, if you'd like to have a conversation, all right, about any of this, things that can really have an impact on your future, let us know what that would be and when. We're doing a couple of spots right on here that we reserved for this local group. If you don't like these spots, that's okay. Call us, we'll call you. Okay, everybody's looking at their sheet and thinking, what do I do with this? Okay, we're just saying, there's a lot of good questions. What type of questions should we answer right now?
I thought there was a rule that if you're taking money out, you couldn't reinvest it. Am I wrong about that?
So can you repeat the question so everybody can hear that?
Your question is if you're taking money out
Yeah.
of what?
Of my annuity.
Can you reinvest it is your
Yes.
question.
Can I make a box out of that money or what?
You would think it's a simple question,
Yeah,
right?
it's very
There are no
complex.
simple questions.
Oh.
It depends.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Write it down, and we'll look at your personal situation. In general, if you have money and it's growing, yeah, you can reinvest that growth somewhere else, but would that be taxable to you is something we would be trying to keep an
There's
eye
a lot of
on.
strategies available, there's a lot of
A lot of
flexibility.
strategies.
A lot of strategy, you gotta develop a strategy that suits your needs, okay?
We do want you guys to know too, we're in Shalom on Moon Street. We're in Brunswick Forest, in Leland. We're accessible for this community. You know, we're honored to help people in this community, and that's what we do, is we help.
5 things that successful people do that unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. Raise your hand if you wrote down the 5 things. I've got, okay, good. First lady right here. Sandy, what are they?
Get educated.
Get educated, number 1, education. Number 2, what is it?
Use your information.
Yeah, put it into action. If you found out something tonight that works, one of the things is put it into action. Don't procrastinate. What's number 3?
Get passionate.
Get passionate. If you want to cut your taxes, by golly, find out about it. I do. Tax-free goes better with anything my wife rears, I promise you. What's number 4?
Courage.
Courage. You gotta have courage. Do the things that people that are unsuccessful aren't willing to do. Take action. Be courageous about it. What's the last thing?
Get feedback.
Yep, see that your plan's working, get that feedback, it's working. So, you get a reward for feedback, you get a reward. Who else gave you an answer? A good one. Oh, I'm sorry, raise your hand, Mike, I'm sorry about that, here you go. All right, so good, that's what you want to do, take a little action. I'm John, I'm gonna be hanging around here. You know, it's interesting to listen to Evan's comments.